Welcome, everyone. I'm Umbrian Libris, for those of you who may not know me yet. Welcome to our community roundtable about natural history of dragons. And I should really have actually, brought my copy to have it in front of me.
Oh, I should pick my one too.
Yeah, I have a physical one, so it's right here.
Yeah, no, I got it.
Can you? I just turned on my fan. Can you hear it?
No.
No, not really. We're good.
Okay.
Yeah.
So just so that everyone knows, I'll reiterate. So first of all, we are recording this so that anyone who wants to listen but couldn't make it will be able to access it later. And those of you who are in the audience, myself and Gogita are just kind of going to get the conversation going a little bit. And then if you want to jump in, there's a button at the bottom that is basically like raise your hand, request to speak, I think is what it's what it's labeled. So you could just press that and we'll let you in. And this isn't really going to have any kind of structure. I just want us to have a conversation.
Yeah.
But since I was the one who suggested this book, I figured I can get us started just letting you know why I recommended it. I first read this book, it must have been about around 2017. And I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a very smooth read. It seemed pretty accessible in the sense of anyone can enjoy it kind of thing. I had some criticisms of it the first time around, and we can talk about those. But it just seemed a fairly not challenging. It's just an enjoyable read. But of course, there's dragons, so it's pretty cool, and I thought it had some interesting takes on how dragons work in this world. So I figured the setting of doing the early research into this kind of thing was fitting with Pokemon Legends, so it seemed like a good place for us to start. I think that later on we're probably going to have more books that are more challenging that maybe deal with some tougher topics, or that, I mean, I don't know. We're letting the book selections be, it's up to the community, but for our first book, it made sense for us to start with something that kind of everyone can enjoy.
On the future, we'll read on the Origin of Species by Charles Darwin.
Maybe. Did either of you have any previous experience with this book? Had either of you read it before?
No, I had never even heard of it before, which is funny because as soon as not as soon as I started reading it, but you put it on there in the list of ones to read, and I bought the book and I started reading, and I found out that one of the booktubers I follow, she has read basically all of the books in the series, and I never knew that. And I follow her.
Is it Murphy?
It's Murphy, yeah.
Yeah, of course.
And I watch her. I've been watching her for a long time, and I didn't know that. But I don't know where she's like, oh, I read all of the books in the series, and I love it. And I was like, wow. But I had never heard of it before.
I have a bit of a similar experience where I hadn't heard of it before it was brought up as a suggestion, and I just had a search after finishing it and found out, oh, Murphy's reviewed it, and a bunch of other people, and I had a quick dip into their reviews just to see some other ideas to bounce off. And other than maybe having a look at the tags, I think that you listed when the book went up, and a brief description, I didn't really know anything about it coming in.
I think I when I first bought it, I don't think I had really heard of it. Like maybe I'd seen an ad for it somewhere, but I just saw the cover. Like I bought it based on the cover, pretty much. Like I probably read the description on the back or something before deciding whether I actually wanted to buy it, but the cover is just so good.
It is a very pretty cover. I really like it.
Yeah.
Now I'm curious if there are any differences between the covers, because that's not unusual between regions or platforms.
That's true. That's
Yeah,
true.
I was gonna say that because like all covers are the same. Like I have the British paperback, and it's the same as the American hardcover.
Yeah,
As far
I'm
as I
pretty
know.
sure I have the British Titan Books print.
Yeah, it's
So,
the Titan.
yeah.
I wonder if they kept the cover for like all editions and such, because like
I think so.
not only is it really good, but it's pretty iconic. Like
Yeah,
it's a very specific style of cover, and like all of the other books in the series have very similar aesthetics to the cover as well. So like I don't know if it was like really big early on or something like that, and they wanted to keep it recognizable, but that might be part of it. It's just like you wouldn't want to uh, diminish the potential reach of the book by changing the cover.
Also changes your impression as you go into it, of course.
For sure, for sure. Yeah, it's got a. It definitely gives you a good sense of what you're going into.
one funny thing I found out because I was never gonna read it translated because if I have the opportunity, I always read the book in well, I only know English and Portuguese. In case nobody else knows, I'm Brazilian, so I speak Portuguese and English. I was never gonna read it translated. If it had a translation. Uh, but I was a little surprised that this book was not published here. Actually,
Oh, it doesn't have a.
A Portuguese
It doesn't have a
translation?
Portuguese translation. Yeah.
Or
it
Brazilian
doesn't.
Portuguese, maybe. It's maybe it's a fairly niche language to translate some book series into. No, I know that some video games, just to get off topic slightly, have only been adapting that more recently.
Yeah, the publishing industry in Brazil though is pretty well established. Um, like part of the reason that we don't get localized video games, because like Nintendo, for example, for almost forever, like didn't even have offices in Brazil.
Yeah,
So
yeah. Actually, if I continue in this topic of games, most of the other publishers do translate their games to Brazilian Portuguese.
yeah,
It's mostly
Yeah.
Nintendo that does.
yeah. So but in publishing, like the publishing industry itself and the kind of import of books is pretty well established. Like it's almost harder to find books that are by Brazilian authors.
Yeah. Actually, that's kind of been changing lately, but that's not the subject. Here.
Oh, I mean, we can talk about that a little bit. Like when I went back to live in Brazil for about 7 months in 2016, I wanted to read science fiction or fantasy books by Brazilian authors. It was
Yeah.
nearly impossible to find them.
It's been changing a little bit in these last years. It there have been like up and coming authors that are been receiving a lot of attention lately.
That's good. That's
So
good.
the last 3 years, I would say. I'm even like I have 3 books here with me from the same author, but it's a very successful author, and they're not fantasy actually. They're historical fiction, but they're not like it's lowbrow or like the very like fancy historical fiction. It's more like a historical fiction, but more accessible, let's say.
Okay.
And it's quite successful. I see that a lot around, uh, like BookTube, let's say,
Oh.
Brazilian.
Yeah, that's good.
Oh,
What did you guys think about the story? Uh, did anything about the plot, I guess, for Natural History of Dragons, did any of that stand out to you?
not especially. It just seemed like a very smooth read, as you described a few times. Um, as as I was reading through it, most recently, I I was thinking of the world of Monsanto quite a bit actually, in just how now, obviously this is the book was brought up because of Pokemon, but I think Monsanto also shares some interesting parallels um in how in how the fantasy is explored.
I'm not
And
familiar with Monster Hunter at all, so how is that?
so one example which comes to mind is how they basically have classifications of monsters. So there's small monsters, which is a start. So that can be like, think of that as like a slime in Dragon Quest. Only they probably look more like dinosaurs, simple-ish dinosaurs. And then the larger monsters, which are more fantastical, but are always fairly grounded, and they try to describe, okay, this body part has this attribute, and they kind of really go into the details where monsters will go to feed if they get injured, they'll go to sleep if they get really beaten up. They don't necessarily always get the finer details to be as deep in the sense of this thing is this weight, this thing is this long, etc. But Pokemon sometimes implemented that into stats. So I think Monsanto is kind of similar in the approach of so much detail and lore if you're willing to look for it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought I really liked the way that they kind of acknowledged that this is a very early um,
Yeah.
kind of research. Like they don't know much. Um, I thought that like I'm sure that the later books, because you know the series is they're all memoirs, but they cover like basically all of Lady Trent's um, career. So I haven't read any of the others, but I assume that as you progress, you get to learn more and more about dragon behavior, dragon biology, and all that kind of thing. So, but because it's narrated from quote unquote the present, right? It's narrated by Lady Trent like late career, even though she's telling about events that happened really early on. She she still gives some insights kind of in passing about things that they learned later, like at the beginning when she talks about sparklings, I think is what they were called, right? Uh,
Yes.
where they were like, oh, we used to think that they were bugs, but now we know that they are dragons. And like we don't get much information about like what exactly makes a sparkling more dragon like than bug like. Um,
Yeah.
but we
Sorry, I'll let you finish.
I was just gonna say like we don't get that information, but we get the sense that like I don't know. I pictured them kind of like dragonflies, I guess. Um, you know, dragonfly like. Um, so, but we like I feel like we're gonna learn later on what are the kind of defining characteristics of a dragon. Um, even if we don't know what those are yet. So I thought that was just an interesting approach. What were you going to say?
I was going to say, when I was going through it again, I noticed that it mentions that there are 6 characteristics which make classify them as dragons, and I think it named the 6th one. Okay, here it is. Extraordinary breath is apparently one of the 6th characteristic. I don't know what 1 to 5 are. I doubt it's in all 5 are listed in there clearly because of we probably would have recalled that information in that case.
Yeah.
I was actually watching a video on Monsanto, and it was talking about the Gore Magala, which you can just think of as it's a flagship monster. So think of a legendary, effectively, in Pokemon as a parallel. Okay. But the person who was creating the video is saying it can't be an Elder Dragon, even though it looks cool, it's really scary, it can even infect monsters, other monsters, and also players. It isn't because of it has a weakness to certain types of traps which can be laid out. So it's just interesting to think about how classifications are made over these sorts of things. I think they also talked about the wolf. What was it? The very first, the wolf drake, and how it was only similar to a wolf. They're only similar to wyverns and dragons in the sense that it seems to like sheep and has vestigial wings, if I can remember, from the illustration. I think so,
yeah. Also. There an illustration of the wolf drake? I can.
Yeah, in chapter 2, at least
I think in the very beginning.
Yeah, it's very early.
Yep.
It has little.
In chapter 2, page 33, I suppose.
Yeah, it basically looks like little swords sticking out of its back.
More or less.
Yeah, and I didn't really leaf through all of the illustrations this time around because I was listening to the audiobook, so I didn't have the print book in front of me the whole time. But I just realized, I just realized that there is actually an illustration of a sparkling right at the beginning.
There is, and it says to scale as well, which is curious.
Mm-hmm. So they seem very clearly dragon-like. The only thing that I notice about it that makes it seem more bug-like, and maybe the people of the time were like, oh, this must be a bug, is that it has 6 limbs. Well, 8 limbs, but 6, 3 pairs of legs.
Yeah. Very strange arrangement.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The arms, it just kind of seems like a kind of a mess of arms. I wonder what the what the use of them is, but
yeah. And you can see a marking saying that Lockwood did the illustration. I wonder if that character will come up, or the illustrator will be brought up at a later point.
I think Lockwood might be just the name of the actual illustrator. Yeah.
In real life, you mean?
Yes, so I'm looking at the copyright page now. Yeah. Illustrations by Todd Lockwood.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I was looking too deep.
Yeah, I guess it's just the
Todd Lockwood.
The watermark of the illustrator, which is a little bit odd to have that.
Yeah, it would be more. It would definitely wouldn't be there if it was in universe. Yeah. Maybe it would be a signature in the corner.
Yeah, it is a bit of a weird choice now that you bring that up. I had actually never thought, like, I noticed it there. I had never thought about whether that was in universe or not.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, am I the only one who has a copy of the book with the printing in dark brown ink?
I think so. The British one is black and white.
Yeah.
Or grayscale, rather.
I showed a picture.
Yeah.
It,
I had the same edition as him.
okay. Yeah, I shared a picture of the illustrations in mine in the lounge, I believe, a few weeks ago. It's just for when you're reading the text is a pretty subtle difference. Like I didn't even really notice that it was a different color because uh, also at least on my edition, the pages themselves are cream colored, so it's all already a little bit warmer.
Yeah.
But when you get to the illustrations and then the like, it gets really noticeable with the middle shades where like this is not gray, right? This is this is brown. So that makes it pretty. It just makes them much more pleasant to look at. It makes it seem more like I'm actually looking at something on paper, uh, like looking at the original, as opposed to looking at something that was printed. It's yeah, it just adds a really special warmth, and I feel like if I was ever to have this kind of decision power on a book that has black and white illustration, on a book that is printed black and white, but has illustrations, that I would also favor going for a dark brown ink instead of black, because it might be slightly more expensive because black is not an ink that printers have. Black is an ink that printers have pre-mixed. So if you're picking a Pantone dark brown color, they might need to prepare that, which would, just add a little bit of time and therefore a little bit of cost. But to me, it just seems so worth it.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I don't think the author has that kind of power in this case. No, I'm
Oh no,
assuming it's
not
a
the yeah.
publisher decision.
No, it wouldn't be the author's decision for sure.
No,
It would
no
be
chance.
it would be the publisher, or potentially, depending on the size of the publishing house, potentially an art director. This is Tor. I imagine Tor is pretty big. Tor is pretty classic, pretty well known in science fiction and fantasy. So, my big kind of complaint about the book, my big criticism of it, is that I wish it wasn't in a fantasy world. Marie Brennan did such a good job of making this world seem like Victorian England, or not just England, but like the main characters being from England, but just the Victorian era worldwide. She did such a good job of making it feel really believable and really feel like, uh, like Jane Eyre and things like that. Like it felt that it could have been even more powerful if it just had been Victorian England and like Victorian era Europe. Um, the the country that they go to, Drusnev felt like Germany, like rural Germany, like maybe, I don't know, Bavaria or something like that. Like, but they did such a good job of making this fake world feel like the real world. I wish it had just been the real world. I think it would have been much more powerful that way. Did you guys, did that stand out to you at all?
As I was going through it again and having a look at the map as a reference, I could see how different locations are effectively substitutes for other locations in this point of time, but it's just that I didn't feel strongly that it needed to be our world. And maybe I'll feel that way if I see more of what Mary Brennan's written in another series or later in this one. No, I think it probably stands to benefit if she can kind of create her own geography.
It, yeah, it,
I
it does seem that she did create her own geography, but I don't know. To me, it just seems unnecessary.
Yeah, I understand your complaint because I really do feel that it's I kind of I don't understand what the purpose is of being set in another type of world, except for like there's dragons there.
Hmm.
Because it's very much it's what you said. It's very much our society, Europe and the 19th century. But it doesn't actually bother me that much. It's just like it's something I think about, and then yeah, it's whatever. It is what it is.
Yeah. I
It
was just
doesn't
thinking.
bother me, but
Yeah, I think I just have a I I really like books that it's just like it's our world but different kind of thing. Um,
mhm.
so just a good example of that is Harry Potter, right? Like it it has a whole fantasy side to it, but it still takes place in what is supposed to be contemporary real world. And there's also things like um, Pride and Prejudice and zombies, where it's just like it's Pride and Prejudice, but with zombies in this world. Um, I I haven't read that one in particular, but I just like that I like that kind of setup for the universe a lot, and so this just felt like a perfect opportunity to do that.
I think she can also talk about interactions of culture without the baggage of in real life things that happen. Maybe that's one of the objectives.
Yeah, I think in Harry Potter in particular that might be of a bit of a problem. Of course I enjoyed it back when I first read it and up to the end of it. But it's just the more that you think about it, whether it's like the PS1 didn't release yet, what are you doing? Or all these wizards that why didn't you stop this war or whatever? Or the additional little stuff that she adds that um, it probably makes for more trouble in some cases, depending on how far along you are into the future, I suppose, or present.
Yeah, I could see like I don't think like the general course of history would be much of a problem because I mean I don't know what at what time the author Lady Trent. I don't know at what time Lady Trent is writing her memoirs, so I don't know what kind of era uh, she's in at the end of the series. So like I don't know,
Yeah.
maybe there's like a world war or something like that that would make a significant difference to how the how history plays out. Um, but aside from that, like I didn't feel like at least for this book um, that having to interplay with real world history that it would have made any difference. Like where I can see it being a little bit trickier is in particular the religious aspects of the village, right? Like maybe she wouldn't want to the author Marie Brennan might not want to.
Real world parallels like that, yeah.
Yeah, it might be tricky. I but like the thing is that this like even if it is the real world, this is still a world where dragons exist, and so fundamentally history would be different. And
Mhm.
so like having the Draconid culture, right? Like that could just be part of it being a world where dragons exist. That instead of there being like the Roman Empire, that it's the Draconid Empire, or and like it can be different, right? It doesn't have to be like a direct real world parallel. And I feel like the same thing could be done with religions, especially more what's the word I want? More pagan religions, maybe, like that this is a like this is fundamentally a different world, even if it shares a lot of qualities with our world. So I don't see why there couldn't be a unique religious sect. I don't know what the word would be, but like there could be a unique religion that develops in this world that doesn't develop in ours, in our dragonless timeline, even if it's still quote unquote our world. Am I making sense?
You are.
Okay.
You're making sense.
Okay. Well, if my big complaint about the book didn't affect either of you too much, did either of you have something that stood out to you?
Not from me. Not that comes to mind anyway. And I made it some note, so I guess I have no complaints so far. Probably in part because of the series is not complete from where I'm reading.
Have you read beyond just the first book?
No, I haven't. I have even read the beginning of the second one. I'm sure I could probably find an ebook, the option to read a free sample of the next book, but I just haven't.
Mm-hmm. I didn't read it this time, but my edition of the book does have a little. It has the first chapter, I guess, of book. First two chapters looks like of book two.
Okay.
And I probably read that when I first read the book. This time when I was listening to the audiobook, I didn't.
Hmm.
But
That's something the Brits don't get, I suppose.
maybe. Yeah, I don't know. Who's the publisher in your edition?
R1 is Titan Books.
Okay. Yeah, so I guess it is a like not just the British branch of the same publisher, but actually a different publisher. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what.
Yeah, maybe it wasn't part of the agreement, I suppose. It would have been nice to see a little further ahead.
Yeah. Do you have any intention of reading more of
Yeah,
the series?
I'd say so. Especially if it ends up being part of this group. But if it doesn't, I'll probably end up reading it after getting on to the next book or at least starting with the next one that we've already decided on.
Mm-hmm. How about you, Hafa? Do you think you're going to read more of the series? Maybe we've lost Hafa.
Seems so.
Well, I'll repeat the question later if he comes back. But for myself, I think I mean, I haven't read beyond that in the time since I first read this book, and I don't think that I will really.
Mhm.
The thing is that I have a strong bias against series.
Mm.
There are so many books that I want to read. I don't like feeling like if I commit to this first one, I need to commit to the entire series.
Oh, okay. Are you a fan of manga by any chance? Any long-running ones?
I have not read any long running ones, no.
Okay, that's probably a sign of the difference in our characters. I'm following One Piece and Detective Conan, two series which are over 1,000 chapters, aka over 100 volumes long.
If I was a
So
faster reader,
yeah,
I would probably be more willing to commit to a series to reading a complete series.
yeah,
Um, I like it when whether the book is in a series or not. I like it when it's a complete story. And I've read a few books that are the first in the series that it feels like once you get to the end, you're not actually at the end, right? Like you,
oh,
it might be a satisfactory ending to the particular arc that the first book focuses on, but don't but you're left with a lot of unanswered questions, and maybe there's even like a cliffhanger to hook you into reading the next book or something like that. And I really don't like that. This book, thankfully, didn't have that.
yeah,
It felt very complete. It felt like this could have been a one-off book. It could have been a standalone. Aside from the fact that like occasionally Lady Trent talks about things that are going to happen later in her career that we don't get to see here. But aside from that, it did not feel like a book that was forcing me to read more of it.
yeah. I can definitely say I appreciate that, and I do like standalone shorter series. I think when we were brainstorming options, I wasn't so sure about this one being recommended because of I'd really prefer to only get the one book or listen to the one audiobook if possible.
Mm-hmm.
But audiobooks do make it fairly easy to get through it, though that's not what I did for this one. And I can make exceptions here and there. I don't read tons of long running series.
Yeah, I just I avoid series. When I mentioned earlier that I was having trouble finding books, science fiction or fantasy books by Brazilian authors, part of that trouble was that I was trying to avoid a series. Like
Yeah,
here, it's not exactly easy, but it is possible to find standalone books that are science fiction and fantasy. When I was looking for one by a Brazilian author, I found literally one. And I liked it,
okay.
but it was the only option that I had.
Hello? You hear me?
Oh, yeah,
You're back.
I don't know why it's Discord. Uh, it was not picking up my voice.
Oh,
and you could still hear us because it seemed like you're still with us.
yeah.
Yeah, no, I was hearing you. I just couldn't speak. It. I wasn't talking.
Um, well, do you want to jump in? What was my question again?
It was, do you have any problems with the book? I think something on those lines.
Yeah, if I wanted to continue.
Oh yeah, yeah. Do you feel
Oh,
like you're gonna read more of the book?
that too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, if I have any problems, first, I don't remember any particular problem. I think it was very well written, and it's like it flows very well, but it's not very too simple. One a problem I have with some books is that they are read, but their rating is too full, and I think this doesn't have that problem. Uh, but yeah, actually do want to read the other books because even though, like you said, it doesn't have a cliffhanger, but I feel that her story is just beginning, and I want to see what she does more.
Mm-hmm.
I want to see what she will discover in her story, and I want to see actually not only that, but I want to see how the world changes as she discovers things.
Yeah.
Right.
I particularly
Right.
want to. I particularly want to see how I guess we can say this. It's a spoilers discussion. How the death of Jacob affects other relationships that she has and other connections.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I assume that Lord Hilford would still be sympathetic, but I'm not sure about how other relationships would go as she transitioned from just starting womanhood into becoming Lady Trent.
Yeah, I got the impression that Lady Trent is not going to have any other uh, romantic interests.
Yeah. I remember there was a point where at Isabel, I think she was talking about how and she was mentioning that Amanda Lewis was her friend until her husband took her away.
Mm-hmm.
It was a line like that, and for that reason, I was strongly under the impression that seeing how she connected with Jacob and how their relationship progressed, that would be her life partner at least for a decent length of time through the first expedition.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm curious where things would go from there. And of course, there was a child in the way. I might misremembering that.
No, yeah,
I think I think
she
the
ends.
child is already born, isn't it? Or
Yeah,
am I?
at the very end of the book, in the like last chapter or whatever.
First of all, at this point of the like romantic relationship, I really like their relationship in this book. I don't like story that focus on romance that much. And this story doesn't. But when there's like romance and a story like this, and it's when it's well written, because that's all. I think that's the problem with a lot of fantasy books or other types of books that uh, do contain uh, romance is that most of the time the author doesn't know how to write their characters in a relationship. I think got it very right because they have a very particular relationship, and I really like how Lady Trent describes her relationship at the end, saying like how she loved Jacob, but if it wasn't the way people wanted it to be, their relationship, uh, that was kind of saying that this was their problem, not hers. That she knew she loved him, and that's what matters. And I, in her own way, I really like that.
Mm-hmm.
I actually, and another relationship I actually ended up liking is her relationship with the I forgot his name, the assistant to
Black Mirror?
the no,
Oh,
the guy,
Mr. Wilker,
yeah,
Thomas
Mr.
Wilker.
Wilker. I really like because they hate each other
Mm-hmm.
and they don't end up liking each other at the end, but they kind
No.
of earn their a kind of mutual respect for each other.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually love that.
Yeah, I was fond of it as well. And also, Lord Hilford's calling her out at one point when I think she was judging him for judging Mr. Wilker for what class he came from initially. I think there was one case of that happened around the middle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't think she was exactly judging him for his class, but she thought her
Yeah.
problems were bigger than his,
Um.
and she kind of balances out like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
I am a woman. I kind of think that my problems are bigger than his because can can get richer. He can get perceived, but I
Mm-hmm.
can't change my sex. At least for her, like I, I was born a woman. There's nothing I can do.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
she really stops and considers his point of view there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, I think this is a good
Uh,
place for us to end. Oh, did you want to say something else?
oh yeah, I want just it's like I'm not a huge fan of dragons. Very honest.
It's great.
Uh, so, uh, I mean, not like European style dragons. I actually really love the mystical Asian, Japanese, Chinese kind of dragon.
Mhm.
But the this type of dragon I'm not really fond of. But I actually really liked how she talked about them in this book. It made me a little more interested in them than just like no.
Yeah, there were some interesting elements of dragon like physiology, like they all have this extraordinary breath of some kind, but like sometimes it's fire, sometimes it's poison, sometimes it's ice, and like we don't really know what the differences are, um, and and like the whole thing about dragons deteriorating really quickly after they die.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
it.
that's
That's just really interesting, and like it makes me really curious, like evolutionarily, like what is the advantage, what um, or what is the cause. So probably something that'll be explored more in future books. Okay.
so you really want to stop here?
I
I,
think that makes sense.
yeah,
Yeah.
this seems like a good place for us to stop. Was there more that you wanted to say, Hafa?
Not that no that I remember.
Okay.
It, the way I phrased it, it did seem, but it wasn't. It wasn't.
Yeah. Well, I hope that everyone listening enjoys the conversation, and I hope that next time we'll have more people joining us to participate as well. We will be reading for the next period Lesser Known Monsters of the 21st Century by Kim Fu. I'm really looking forward to that. I haven't read. I don't think anyone here has read it before, but it seems really interesting. So I'm looking forward to it.
Likewise.
Yeah, me too.
So just before we leave, I'm gonna put in a reminder here that this whole book club is meant to be run exclusively by the community. So like we have community managers to help like make more like planning decisions and things like that, but suggesting books, picking books, these discussions, uh, inviting new people, like all of that. I'd love to see more community members getting more involved in those ways. I
Yeah,
feel like
I was gonna volunteer to be here, like to organize this, but I got really sick last week, so I didn't know if I was gonna be. I didn't even know if I was gonna be here because I was really sick.
well, I'm glad that you are here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think
Thanks
I
for
got better,
joining.
but I got better these last days.
Mm-hmm.
I was really sick, so I was like, I don't know if at this Saturday I'm gonna be better. So I didn't say anything, but I can totally be here for next book. And yeah, there's a point. I keep forgetting about like talking about this book club. Uh, I think yeah, I should
Yeah,
talk
if you
more about
know,
it.
and this goes to you, Hafa, but also to anyone who hears this, if you know other people who might be interested, please invite them. Just send them the Discord invite. I think everyone has the power to has the ability to create invite links and send them to people. If for some reason you do not, let me know and I'll look into it. But I believe everyone has the ability to do that, and um, yeah, it would be great to
Yeah,
get some more people reading with us.
the most trouble I'm having is thinking of something that can have some kind of relation to Pokemon, some books. That's why I'm not suggesting things because I really, I'm really having trouble with that. And
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like I don't think you need to have like something very specific. That's just like the hook that I used for this book was like, oh, it's kind of like making the first Pokedex in Pokemon Legends, but like I don't think you need anything that specific. It's just like it's got fantasy creatures. Probably Pokemon fans are gonna like it.
Yeah, that's all we really need.
Yeah.
And I think that's still a problem because I don't know. I'm not.
Yeah.
I
My
still
problem is I don't read enough um, stories which happen to have fantasy creatures other than manga, and most of those tend to
Yeah,
be long running.
Right.
exactly. I read a lot of manga, so that's
Yeah,
what I actually know.
yeah.
Uh,
Maybe there's a light novel or two that one of us know.
yeah, actually, yeah, there is.
Yeah, that might be a decent middle ground. Not all of those end up being 30 plus volumes.
Yeah. And here's the other thing. If we get enough like suggestions, right? The community is going to vote on which ones interest them. So if you have a book that you like and you can't think of a particular reason that it ties in with Pokemon, like it doesn't even have fantasy creatures, but you like it and you think other people here are going to like it, put it in the suggestion. If people aren't interested, they won't vote for it, right?
Right?
Yeah.
So,
I've been thinking about it.
yeah. And
And one last thing, just
go ahead.
because I since I like to talk, because I have an opportunity to somebody. Have you seen the cover for the lesser known monsters of the 21st century?
We should probably share that in the Discord in one of the
It's
channels.
very
I've
beautiful.
seen it because I have a physical copy of it, but yeah.
Oh, you already bought it.
I haven't bought it yet.
Yeah. My wife got me a copy, and that's why I suggested it. Is because I had a copy, and I was like, well, I'm gonna read this anyway. This seems really interesting, and so maybe this is gonna be something that other people in the group are gonna enjoy as well.
The
So
price has gone up.
that yeah, that happens, especially in our day and age. All right.
Anyway,
Well, thank you guys for joining me, and thank you to everyone who listens and who participates in the conversations, or even who just reads the books, even if you don't participate. We appreciate your engagement. Bye.
Bye.
bye.